Hi students, and thank you so much for joining us for the 2021 Planet Protector Summit. This is our first ever virtual event. My name is Dana Ralph, and I am the mayor for the city of Kent, and I'm here to welcome you to this annual event. It started back in the year 2000. If you think about that, that was 21 years ago. It's a long time that we've been doing this event. As we all know, 2020 was a pretty strange year. We had COVID and everything went virtual. You guys were staying home to go to school, and we couldn't do this event, so we had to cancel it. But we're back this year with this new format, and we really think you're going to enjoy what this day holds. The Planet Protector Summit is a focus on our water, the community we live in, and what it provides for environmental education to you, our future leaders. We only have one planet, and we need your help in taking care of it. Today, you're going to be hearing from fabulous groups that will be bringing you this Planet Protector Summit or event to life. You will learn about Kent's local watershed, Pacific Northwest Raptors, and I don't mean the dinosaur kind, so check back when you learn what a Pacific Northwest Raptor is. You'll learn about our water and how to make pollution soup. That sounds kind of gross, doesn't it? And we'll finish the program by learning just how magical our water and environment really is. We hope that you take away from this a love for the environment and this earth that we live on, and are able to go out and teach your friends something, and most importantly, teach your parents something. So with that, I present to you the 2021 Virtual Planet Protector Summit.
Hello, my name is Risa Suho. I'm currently a sophomore at the University of Washington, but I live and breathe in Kent. And as you can see by this table, I'm in Kent. And today, I'm presenting with
Alicia Gill. Hello everyone, my name is Alicia. I go to Kent Meridian High School. I'm in 12th grade, and I also live and breathe in Kent.
Sweet. So today, we're going to be talking about people and their relationship to the watershed. But why is that stuff important? Can you please grab the map?
Here we have.
Bam! So check this map out. This map depicts the entire watershed within Washington. But what is a watershed? So a watershed generally is a landscape that accumulates water when water falls from higher places like mountains to lower places like rivers and oceans. You might actually have been to a few, as many people do. I love beaches. So, checking out this map, you'll see some familiar places that I've written out, such as Seattle or Tacoma. But looking at these map, you might see little pink dots. That was totally intentional. These little pink dots depict historical longhouse sites. What are those? So longhouses are traditional communal living spaces. They're super large, hence the name long house. People live in these super big houses. And I'll let you guess for 3 seconds on who lives in those spaces. 1, 2, 3. That's right, guys. Native Americans have traditionally lived in that area. Now, while that is a very cool historical fact, again, we're talking about watersheds. So if we take a look about where these dots are placed, we'll actually notice, they're on blue spots and lines. Well, those blue spots and lines represent water, such as streams, lakes, and the overall Puget Sound in water. So take another good guess on why would people want to build their communities around water? Well, I'll give you one hint. People love drinking water. It's a good way to stay hydrated, and it's a good way to keep yourself alive, as well as myself. So, one, water is an important resource, but I'll give you a few more reasons. So another reason why water is super important to build communities around is because guess who else drinks water? Wildlife. Animals also drink water. And while humans like drinking water, we also like eating animals that live within water as well, such as salmon, which are native to the Pacific Northwest. You might have found a few just swimming around in a stream or in an ocean somewhere, or maybe on your plate. Hey, me too. So, one last reason for you vegetarians and vegans out there, water is super important to, well, watering plants. Plants love drinking water and they need it to grow. So, plants have also been used for people to eat, but we've also used plants for medicinal purposes as well. So we also need plants for nutrients and for when we have injuries. One last thing to think about. Who else is water super important? Who's impacted by water? Take a quick guess, take a quick guess. Well, one group that is not often thought about is immigrants and refugees. If you're like me, an immigrant, I come from the Philippines. In the Philippines, we don't always have access to clean water. Not all the water looks super tasty. Sometimes it's brown. And honestly, I wouldn't want to drink it right now. And I'm pretty sure if you look at brown water that you see just running down the stream outside your house, you probably wouldn't want to drink it either. So it's super important to immigrants and refugees when they're looking for new places to live that they have access to clean, healthy, safe water.
So, speaking of refugees and immigrants, I'm also an immigrant. I'm born in Canada and I'm also Indian. So, if we look right here, this represents Kent. And Kent is on a hill, so this is going to be higher up and then going down. So, what do you think happens when it rains? I'm going to put this blue water on the road to see what happens. So if you put it over here.
Oh my gosh, look at that water.
It looks to pool down right over here. And that is a problem. I'm going to give you 3 seconds to think about why that would be a problem. Because it's dirty water. It looks unclean, it's polluted, which means it kills animals like fish, and nobody really wants to drink dirty water. So if I instead put this water on this plant, what would happen? I'm going to give you 3 seconds. Let's try it out. So I'm going to put some water here, and if I pick it up, it doesn't pool at the bottom down here. So that is why Kent makes rain gardens.
Thanks, Alicia. Cool demonstration. What are rain gardens? So, like Alicia demonstrated, we could probably guess what generally a garden is. It's a place with a lot of plants and especially more dirt and soil. So, imagine we take this as a rain garden. I'm gonna take the same blue water. Whoa, check it. And imagine this plant on a larger scale. Just like a plant, rain gardens are bigger versions of a bunch of plants put together, and together they absorb a lot of water. Rain gardens, they're really helpful at absorbing and filtering water, just like this sponge right here. But why are we talking about rain gardens? Well, rain gardens are also gardens, right? What can we do at gardens? I'll give you 3 seconds to think about it. What can we do at gardens? Well, gardens are a good place to grow produce like fruits and vegetables. Gardens also have the purpose of helping out our pollinators, such as bees and birds spread pollen, right? And gardens can also function at community spaces. Chances are you have been to a park and you've seen a lot of plants, right? And those are gardens that you see at parks. So rain gardens also function as places where people can gather together and do certain activities like garden. And lastly, one of the last purposes that you just saw demonstrated is that rain gardens are super good at filtering and preventing polluted stormwater from entering our watershed.
So rain gardens are amazing, but another thing Kent can do is create cisterns. But what is a cistern? Cisterns are basically large buckets of water that collect rain, like this. We have a Lego version of it, and we're going to put it right here down in Kent. And if I take my rain again and put it down, the water tends to pool up in here instead of the road. And lots of other cultures do this as well. Right here, I have a picture of a woman in India creating her own version of a cistern.
Nice. So why are we talking about all these crazy buzzwords like watershed, rain garden, cistern? Well, it's because it's super important to people to have a clean environment, especially clean water and a clean watershed. So let's recap real quick. Why is it important to have a clean and healthy watershed? Let's see if we can remember. 3 seconds. That's right. Reason 1, you live in this watershed. So believe it or not, everyone drinks water. So it's super important to have access to clean and safe drinking water to begin with. Number 2, you're not the only person who loves water. Wildlife, plants, entire ecosystems base themselves just like people when they build a community around watersheds. 3, water is super important to people, which is why people have built histories and their cultures around watersheds and access to water.
So what can we do? We can visit rain gardens in Kent. There are so many, like this one we placed right here, but you can also look on Google and visit with your family. Another thing you can do is place a bucket outside your home and see how much water it collects after a week. You'd be surprised at how much is caught, especially in the winter or the fall months. The last thing you can do, if you want to do any of that, is tell your friends something new you learned today about watersheds and try to pick up litter off of sidewalks so our water doesn't get dirty. Thank you for tuning in today. Hopefully we see you in person next time, but hopefully you also learned a lot in our presentation.
Good morning, and thank you for having us here with you today. My name is Carrie, and I am coming to you from West Sound Wildlife Shelter, located on Bainbridge Island. We're going to be presenting a few of our Raptors species to you today and talking about some of their similarities and some of their differences. A little bit about the West Sound Wildlife Shelter before we introduce you to our animals, though. The shelter itself, based on Bainbridge Island, is there primarily to rehabilitate sick, injured, or orphaned wildlife. So our main job is to take in animals that have lost their parents or been hurt in some way or gotten some kind of illness, and we do our best to help get them big and strong and get them back out to the wild. That's our main goal. Get those animals back out where they can be productive members of their species. However, sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes we have an animal that comes to us and they're not able to rehabilitate or get well 100%, and we're not able to get them back out to the wild. So when that happens, we evaluate them to see if possibly they might be a good fit for an education program like we're going to be bringing to you today. So part of that evaluation would be, how do they respond to people or being around large groups? How do they do when they're on the glove? If we have an animal that we think might be a good fit, then we go through a very long process of training them. So today we have 2 species, as I said, very different species of raptors that we're going to talk to you about. So to begin with, we have Mike, and Mike is going to be presenting our first one. Mike?
Good morning. It is my great honor to present a great horned owl today. His name is Tuckloose, which is a Lushootseed Indian word for owl. But I want to tell you, and from there I want to tell you a little bit about his particular story. This is a bird that is an exception to our mission in the sense that he was not able to be rehabilitated to be returned to the wild. The reason why, and we don't know for sure, we can only speculate, is he was most likely born in a Doug fir tree, probably 40 to 50 feet off the ground, maybe more, and was one of 2 to 4 nestlings who were born each a day or 2 or 3 apart. He may very well have been the last of that clutch. Sometime when he was probably 8 to 10 weeks old, he fell from that nest. We don't know if he was accidentally jostled out of the nest by his older siblings. We don't know if when a parent landed with something that was particularly large to feed them, that he got bumped out then, but we are quite certain that he took a lengthy fall down that tree. And somewhere along the way, he struck on his left wing, I believe, something that badly broke his left wing. Someone hiking found him, rescued him, brought him to us. He'd already actually been through another rehabilitator who removed the outer joint on that damaged wing as a medical necessity. We took him in then as an 8 or 10-week-old bird who was already essentially a wild bird. He had been parent raised up to that particular point in time. And so some of the little things that you might see from him today, if he hisses or if he does what we call guttural fluttering, which looks like panting, that's a reflection of the fact that he is still a wild bird who only reluctantly lives with us and puts up with our handling and treatment in order to bring him to the communities that we work with and show him off. He's now about 1.5 years, almost 2 years, actually he's about 2 years old now. He is a Pacific Northwest Raptor, and what really makes him special, among other things, is that he is what we call an apex predator. He is strictly in the wild a killer. There's no other way around it. He lives on anything that he can hunt for and capture. He's particularly gifted to be able to do this with a couple of 3 things that I'm going to point out to you. A couple of them are going to be real obvious, one of them maybe less so. He has extremely sharp and strong talons. This guy, I've heard the number that he's capable of exerting 400 pounds per square inch of pressure on his talons. What I can tell you from handling him like this is that if he latches onto my glove really hard, as he will sometimes, there's no way I can get him off. I have to manipulate him and, convince him that it's in his best interest to move. He uses those talons like traps. And consequently, he's an ambush hunter, so when he flutters his way to something and lands on it, he's got 2 talons forward, 2 talons backwards, and he traps those animals in a way that there's no way that they're going to get away. The second thing that makes him a very effective hunter, and it should be fairly obvious, maybe you would guess, is those eyes. His eyes, if we take up an enormous part of his skull, they're fixed in his skull. He can't move his eyes left or right the way you and I can, but he compensates for that by having extra vertebrae that make it possible for him to swivel his head 270 degrees. This is part of what makes him an effective hunter. He doesn't move around a lot when he's hunting. He typically, because he hunts strictly at night, he spends a lot of his time sitting and waiting. And he watches for those little tiny movements on the floor of the forest or at the edge of a stream or something like that, and then uses that tremendously gifted eyesight to hone in exactly on what that is. Another thing that makes him an effective carnivore, and this is something you can't see, is that he has devastatingly sharp hearing. If you can kind of see the line along the left side of his eye in the feathering there, and he has a corresponding eye on the right side, those feathers are basically at the edge of what is almost like a satellite dish around his eyes. Behind them, tucked in, are 2 ears, of course. They're not quite symmetrical the way yours and my ears are. So sound waves as they come from a rustle in the leaves strike those ears just a nanosecond differently, and that helps him, without even thinking about it, triangulating the exact distance. So between that devastatingly good hearing, he can hear our hearts beat right now. That's how good his hearing is. Between that really, really great hearing, his absolute uncanny eyesight, including the capability of seeing completely in the dark, and these magnificent talons, he is a perfectly well-equipped hunter for what he does. Another thing I can point out that's very obvious is his beak. If you look at him from the side, you'll see that that beak is hooked, and it doesn't look like it's all that big, but if I could persuade him to open his mouth wide open, you would see that he has a tremendous maw or opening in his mouth. And this guy is quite capable of swallowing mice bigger than my thumb in one bite. But in his case, because he is such a strong bird, he's not limited to mice. This is a bird, again, as an apex predator, top of the food chain, can capture and kill an enormous variety of wildlife. Rabbits, including adult rabbits, rats, mice, young opossums, young raccoons, young crows, young great blue herons. They are a devastatingly effective hunter that basically fears nothing. A lot of times at programs, we get questions from the kids about, well, who would win a fight between a coyote and an owl? Or a wolf and an owl, or maybe even your family dog and an owl. These guys spend very, very little time on the ground. They're very awkward on the ground. So the only time you will ever probably see a great horned owl on the ground, unless there's something wrong, like there was in his particular case, is if he happens to capture something on the ground. And then he's got tremendous lift in his believe it or not, 4-foot wingspan. He's back up off the ground and up in the safety of the trees and the woodland. Great horned owls, although they are definitely found in the Pacific Northwest, are probably one of the owls that you're least likely to see. They're very secretive. Owls of all kinds spend most of their day basically sleeping and resting. This owl is almost strictly nocturnal, so he won't even stir until it's near dark. And then he will do all of his hunting during the hours of darkness. The odds of you seeing him out during the day are pretty slim. During the day, they'll be well up in a tree for the most part, tucked in usually close to the trunk of a tree. I'm going to turn him around here so you can see a little bit get a sense of how well camouflaged he is. And remember, he's not a perfect bird in the back. His wings are a little bit out of place there. But this guy can sit in next to the trunk of a tree, sit very erect, lift those feather tufts, which are feathers, not actual horns, and look like a chunk of wood. And so you and I could walk underneath his tree or his perch during the day and you would never know he was there. Of course, a lot of folks still want to know, well, how can I ever get to see one of these owls? One thing, if you are a regular hiker or even a semi-regular hiker and you get out in some woodland during the day, you can look for crows making a lot of noise. Crows are very social birds. They're also very intelligent, and they've kind of taken on the role of being kind of the guardians of the woodland or the guardians of the countryside, so to speak. And they also know that this owl will raid their nests at night and take their young if they make the slightest bit of noise. So if they happen to spot this kind of owl or any kind of owl out in the daytime, they call in their crow posse, so to speak, and all of a sudden there'll be 6 to 8 to 12 or more crows that you can see from a distance. And first of all, they're making a lot of noise, but secondly, that they're going to raise and lower, go up and down in the trees. And what they're trying to do is to harass these birds and drive them away. So the obvious question that a lot of kids especially would have is, who would win a fight between a crow and an owl? Well, there's no fight. This guy wants to be left alone until it's nightfall. They would like him to move away, and eventually, a lot of times the crows get their way. But if you're the one that happens to be out in the woods and you hear or see something like that, you can almost always bet, and if you can make your way to it, you may be able to see it, that there is some raptor, and in particular, perhaps a great horned owl, that's made his nest in the trees. One of the things that I really wish we could do, but we don't have the capability of doing it today, is to reproduce his sound. He's very quiet on site. I don't think I have ever heard him utter a sound other than a little chirp kind of thing that he does when he's very uncomfortable with something that I'm doing. But if you've ever watched any kind of a movie or television program where the objective is to make you feel a little bit scared or nervous at night, almost always you will hear a classic great horned owl hoot call or hoot somewhere in the soundtrack. That will almost always be a great horned owl. Great horned owls are found throughout the United States, all over the continent, including in high desert environments and stuff like that. They're perfectly at home here in the Pacific Northwest, where there's a mixed habitat of woodland and open land. A couple of other things that I could mention real quickly. These owls, this guy weighs about 2 3/4 pounds right now. He's a male, so he is smaller than a female. Females in this part of the country might approach 4 pounds. Either one of them can carry off more than their own body weight. So you might want to keep your chihuahuas inside at night. He has that capability.
Hey, Mike,
Yes.
can you tell us a little bit about their feathers?
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. I'm going to back up here for a second. I'm going to show you one of his feathers and explain why it's so important. This is a feather that Tuck Loose generously donated to me just a couple of days ago when I was in there corralling him for something. And if I could hand this feather around to a crowd and ask you to rub your fingertips along the edge of it, you would see that it is really, really soft right up into the edges. And if you would contrast that with, say, a pigeon feather that you might pick up in a city street, or a hawk feather or anything else like that, you would find out that those feathers are very rigid, even right up to the edges. This guy is not. And that is because all of his feathering, and he's probably got 10,000 feathers in here, including this one that's kind of loose, are soft that way along the edges to break up sound. And I'm really glad Carrie asked that question, because this guy is almost soundless in flight. It's one more thing that you wouldn't guess that makes him a very, very devastating hunter. Because if you're a little rat or mouse or a small mammal in the brush 20 or 30 feet away, or in the leaf litter of a forest floor, and he spots you and hears you and launches towards you, his flight is much more moth-like than you would see from a hawk or a falcon or something like that. And he will be on you before you realize it, because you'll never hear him coming.
One more thing, Mike.
All right.
I know that you brought a couple of other items
did.
that you wanted to share.
I did. All raptors, and you're going to see another raptor here in a minute, have this really interesting adaptation to the way they eat. These are casts. When raptors eat, they tear up their food, which includes bones and feather and other stuff that they cannot digest. The way they deal with it is to collect it, or the way it is dealt with is that it collects in their crop, and then when it reaches a certain size and scale, it's regurgitated. These are two that I picked up in Tuck Loose's mew on Monday, or in his enclosure. And I was really happy to have them, because we can tell a lot, and for those of you who are aspiring scientists, it may be a way that you can do a little science on your own. If you find something like this in the woods, you may or may not be able to tie it to a great horned owl or to a red-tailed hawk or whatever it might be, but you will be able to determine a lot about what they're eating. This whitish one is the result of his having been fed a laboratory-type rat about 2 or 3 days ago. The darker one, I'm not quite sure what it represents, was probably chicken, but they came from the same bird within about a 24-hour period. And for those of you young folks who want to go out and are desperate to find signs of an owl, even if you don't get to see one, this could be something that you could find laying on the forest floor somewhere. And this will tell you that a raptor of some kind, and in the deeper part of the woods, quite likely an owl, has been around. So, Carrie, I'm really glad you brought that up for me, because I wanted to make sure you got to see those today. Some of you later on in school, maybe in the 5th or 6th or 8th grade, will probably have the opportunity to dissect these things, and you'll see little pieces of mouse skull and rat legs and things like that in these. And they're really kind of cool in a weird sort of a way, but they're definitely a sign that raptors are around. Anything else you can think of, Carrie?
I think you covered everything about Tuck Loose.
Thanks for letting us be here today. We're really, really honored to be able to show this guy off.
So now Mike is going to go ahead and head off with Tuck Loose, and after he gets off, I will be coming back on with our second raptor of the day. Here we go. So this is our second raptor, and this is Mariah. Mariah is a red-tailed hawk, and she is your classic red-tailed hawk. She has the dark coloring and that namesake red tail. When you see them flying overhead, it's easier to tell that their tail is red when you see them from above, but if the sun is shining brightly, from underneath you can see the bright coloring as well. But you will see them frequently up in this area. A lot of times, even as you're just traveling down the highway, if you look on top of light posts or on top of telephone poles, you can see them just sitting there looking for their prey. You'll also see them kind of soaring up above open fields. They'll be looking for their prey too. They are very different than another type of hawk. There's two basic types of hawks. One is called an accipiter. An accipiter is going to be a smaller hawk, shorter body, shorter wingspan, and they're much faster. And you'll see those guys like a Cooper's hawk or a sharp-shinned hawk, and they'll be traveling through the trees, kind of going on after things that are in the forest. A bigger hawk, a buteo hawk, like Mariah is where you're going to see them flying over the open fields. They're going to be soaring more because they are a bigger bird with a bigger wingspan. They don't have the capability to make those sharp turns like an accipiter, a Cooper's hawk, or a sharp-shinned hawk would have. But she is still a raptor, so she does share those common things with tuckloose, like the very sharp beak, the super sharp talons, and the really keen eyesight. Now, the eyesight is very important for them because she's going to be hunting from way up high. And she's looking for her prey, her food, down on the ground, mainly. Oh, she's showing you her red tail again. So she uses that keen eyesight to look for little things like voles and moles, or even bigger things like squirrels or rabbits, and she's looking from a high distance, so she has to be able to see them from way up high. She is a very strong eater, so while she can't pick up the same amount weight-wise that a bird like tuckloose could, she is still going to grab as much as she can in one meal. Our birds are very lucky being at the shelter because they get fed every day. They're on a very strict diet. We weigh out their food. We weigh them every week. And there are some very important reasons for that. But in the wild, they don't know when their next meal is going to come. So it's very important for them to be able to eat as much as they can in one sitting, because it could be 2 or 3 days before they get another meal. So she's going to actually fill herself up, and sometimes when she's really full, you can see her crop on her right side is going to be kind of bulging out. But she'll continue to take in as much as she can. Now, a fun fact about Mariah specifically kind of shows her personality a little bit. When she's very excited to eat, she sort of lets out these little chirping sounds, and she sounds like a little baby bird. She knows the food is coming, and she gets very excited for it. When she eats a piece that might be a little large, she actually lets out a little whistle sound as it goes down into her crop. Now, what she just did right there, or still doing, is called a bait. And sometimes they do that when they're a little bit stressed. There may have been a noise that she heard that stressed her out a little bit. And now she's doing a little bit of open mouth breathing. That's another sign of stress. So this is the first time Mariah's been in a car ride and in front of cameras. So this is all new for her, which is one reason why she might be a little stressed right now as well. Most of the time when we have a bird that baits like that, and it's B-A-T-E, not B-A-I-T like fishing bait, but most of the time when they do that for us, they're able to get themselves back onto the glove. But you may have noticed that when she was kind of fluttering like that and kind of hanging down, that she had one wing that was working really well. Oh, and that was called a rouse, and a rouse means she's feeling more comfortable now. But she had one wing that came out really far and the other wing that was kind of stuck. And that, I guess she was trying to demonstrate to you what her injury was that makes her not able to go back out into the wild. So she had a broken wing, and when the wing healed, it sort of froze in place. So she can't extend that elbow or move her wrist. She can't really move her shoulder either. It's frozen in place, and that obviously makes her unable to fly. So being unable to fly, she would not be able to hunt. She came to us from another shelter. She had been with them for about 5 years before coming to us. And it took us a while to actually get her to the point where she wanted to come to the glove for us. She's doing much better with all the training that we have done with her. But obviously, bird that cannot go to the wild. Now that rouse that she showed you, I said that is a sign that she is feeling a little more comfortable, but it's also a way that birds kind of shake some of the dust out of their feathers, maybe realign their feathers a little bit and get them back into place. So you may be able to see on my glove that there are a lot of very scarred areas where it's been kind of ripped apart. And on my thumb area of that glove, it's actually 3 layers of leather. And that is to protect my hand, because we talked about, Mike and I both, about the sharp talons that they have. Most of those scarring marks that you see on my glove are actually from Tuckloose. He is one of the more ferocious birds that we have, and he lets his opinion be known, and he will really dig those talons in and actually uses his beak also. But you can see where those scarring marks are, that Mariah also has very sharp talons. And when she gets her grip on into my glove, it can sort of make those scars and little dents in there as well. I'm not sure if Mike had mentioned, but sometimes when we're holding Tuckloose, he'll grip down so tightly with his talons that you start to lose circulation in your fingers. And it can be a little painful. It's much nicer when he's a little more relaxed. And Mariah is much more relaxed right now too. So the red tail we were talking about, red-tailed hawks don't get that red tail until they're in their 2nd year of age. So before that, their coloration is going to be much more different. And it might be harder to discern or be able to figure out that it is actually a red-tailed hawk. You might think it's something else because you're not seeing that red tail. They also will get more of a yellow cere. The cere is the yellow part above her beak. Before she gets older, it's more of a greenish color, becomes more yellow as she gets older. Mike, what do you think? What am I forgetting?
I think it would be useful for our audience to hear why so many red-tailed hawks and owls end up at the wildlife shelter, and what they could do to mitigate that.
Thank you. That's a great point. So we do end up with a very high number of raptors, red-tailed hawks, eagles, owls of all sorts that end up at shelters, not just ours, but other shelters in the area. And one of the main reasons of that is they get hit by cars. Now, we don't always know what an injury or what has caused an injury for them. Oh, thank you. But a lot of times we can sort of determine what caused the injury based on where they were found. Sometimes people actually see it happen, so we know precisely how they got injured. But they do get hit by cars frequently. So one thing that we can all do to help not have that happen as often is to make sure we're not throwing anything from cars. Now, I remember as a kid, my parents being like, well, it's just an apple core, just toss it out the window. The problem with that is that apple core, yes, it's biodegradable, it will be food for other animals, but it's right by the road. So those other animals that are going to be coming along to eat it are things like little rodents, their food. So as these little rodents are starting to eat at that apple, here comes Mariah or Tuckloose, and they're swooping down to get that mouse. So the mouse sees Mariah coming, because she's not a stealthy hunter like Tuckloose, sees Mariah coming and starts running. Maybe it runs right into the road and she follows because she's very focused on her food. Remember, she might not know when her next meal is coming, so she wants to get this one. And as that mouse runs into the road and she follows, a car could be coming and she might not even know it. So a lot of times when cars do hit birds, the cars don't even see the bird coming. It happens so quickly. So we can definitely help out by not throwing anything out of our car windows or along the roadside. That's very important. Another reason that we frequently have animals come into care is because of poisoning. Now, unfortunately, we do have problems, not so much in the cities out here in Kent, but definitely out in some of the more country farmland out where we are. People have a lot of problems with rats or mice around their properties. They might have chicken coops, and that brings in the rats. And people want to get rid of those rats, and so they put out bait. And the bait is poison. And what it does is poison that rat or mouse, basically makes their blood clot up so that they die. But unfortunately, the poison doesn't just stop there. So Mariah or Tuck Loose come along and they see this free meal. It's just sitting there, not putting up any fight, so they grab it and eat it. And that poison that was in that rat or mouse then works its way up the food chain through these guys. And the same amount that's going to kill that little mouse or little rat is also enough to kill a raptor. So we do recommend not putting out any sort of poisons for any sorts of rodents either. Another fun fact about raptors, or red-tailed hawks in particular, is when you are watching a movie and you hear the sound of a bird, what's supposed to be a raptor, even if they tell you or it's supposed to be an eagle, it almost always is the sound of a red-tailed hawk. Because if you ever hear an actual eagle cry, it's very wimpy sounding. And a red-tailed hawk scream, it's what it really sounds like is a scream, is much more fierce. An eagle sound is too wimpy to have in the movies as an eagle. And this is Mariah. She is a magnificent red-tailed hawk. Mike, is there anything else I'm forgetting?
I'm
going to do a little spin around.
She is a great bird.
Sorry?
She is a great bird.
Yeah.
We're really honored to have her, pleasure to have her.
Get a good look at that tail for her and her backside. And you can see as she is sitting here right now, how the wing on this side is a little lower and drooping. This side is higher. Well, I think that's the end of our presentation today. I want to thank you all for having us again. We've really enjoyed coming, and I hope you all have learned quite a bit about raptors and red-tailed hawks and great horned owls in particular. Thank you. Oh, there's our little chirp.
Hi everyone, my name's Toby Halleck. I work for City of Kent Public Works Engineering. Today I'm going to be Chef T.O.B. and you're going to help me make pollution soup. First thing we're going to do is start with this nice clean pitcher of water. I just got this out of the drinking fountain, so you know it's nice and clean, it's tasty. Here in Kent we have very delicious water. First ingredient of our pollution soup is going to be milk. We're going to pour just 2 of these little cups of milk in there. All right, would you think this would be safe to drink? Of course it's safe to drink. It's just milk and water. It's probably going to taste a little watered down, maybe taste a little funny, but you can still drink it. It's safe to drink. Let's give that a little bit of a stir. So now there's our first ingredient in pollution soup. The next ingredient is going to be showers. If you think about what goes down the drain when you take a shower, that's hair, soap, shampoo, all the dirt you're washing off your body, your dead skin cells. Is this now safe to drink? You can see it's a little foamier. It's definitely not safe to drink. You wouldn't want to drink anything going down any of your drains in your house. Next, we're going to add detergent. Hey, maybe a little bit of laundry detergent will help clean this water up. What do you guys think? Well, it doesn't look cleaner to me. When you think about what goes down the drain when you wash your clothes, there's also all the dirt from your clothes. Maybe you have some food stains. There's also going to be some leftover detergent. And that's what makes this a little foamier. Definitely didn't make anything cleaner, and all it did was make it worse and more unsafe to drink. The next thing we're going to add is toilet. I don't need to tell you what goes down the drain when you flush the toilet, but now it's definitely not safe to drink, and I'll make sure I wash my hands once we're done. Give it another little stir. The next ingredient is garbage disposal. Some of you may have a garbage disposal at your house where you can scrape food off your plate and it goes down the drain. You hit a button or flip a switch and it grinds up those little food chunks and it goes down the drain. Some of it sticks inside of here. But we've got enough in there with our 3 cups of garbage disposal to make a good pollution soup. Give that another stir. Now you can see all the chunks floating around in there. And again, this is still unsafe to drink. It's not getting any better anytime soon. Next, we're going to add household cleaners. I hope some of you help your parents with chores. Maybe you wash some dishes or help clean the windows. You've probably seen this blue liquid to help clean windows. Should you ever drink that? Heck no. Did it help clean our pollution soup? Heck no. And again, this is unsafe to drink, but it is pollution soup. So that's the goal. Next, we're going to add oil and antifreeze. So we'll pour a little bit of that in, a little bit of that in, and one more for good measure. So when you guys go to a parking lot after it's rained, you probably see the rainbow sheen that oil leaves if a car is leaking oil. Well, if you filled a cup about this size full of oil and poured it out onto a lake, the lake would get that oil sheen, bigger than the size of the table, bigger than the size of this room. It'd be the size of an entire football field. So when you see a drop of oil in the parking lot, that's why the rainbow sheen spreads out so large. So now we've got that here in our pollution soup. Maybe hard to see the rainbow in this jar. Next, we're going to add paints and solvents. So a little red paint to our mix. Make sure you never drink or even smell any of the paints or solvents that you may have around your house. We'll give that a stir. Now we're getting a very, very nice, gross color of pollution soup. The next thing we're going to add is fertilizers. If you don't know what fertilizers are, you can use those to help your plants grow, help your vegetables grow. Should you ever drink or eat fertilizer by itself? No. So that's one reason why when you buy fruits and vegetables at the store, you always want to rinse them off before you eat them. In addition to other people may have touched them and we're in COVID times. All right, the last ingredient we're going to add is pesticides. If you don't know what pesticides are, they're things that you can put on plants or vegetables that you're growing in your yard to help keep bugs off of them. A lot of times they're sprays, or sometimes they're things you can put around the ground of the plant to keep bugs away. Another reason why you should always wash your fruits and vegetables before you eat them. All right, let's give this a good stir. And now, voila, we have made pollution soup. The next thing we're gonna do is talk about how we might be able to clean this. So the first thing, what we can try to do is, we'll use this strainer. We'll pour out this pollution soup into this new clean pitcher and see how clean we can get it. Well, I've got some chunks in the strainer, but does this look safe to drink? No, it does not. So that didn't work. Is there anything we can do to clean this? Unfortunately, there isn't. But now I'm going to walk through some of the items that we added into the pollution soup that might be able to help reduce pollution overall. So the first ingredient after milk, first ingredient that we added was showers. One way to reduce the water that you have in the shower is to take a faster shower. Maybe limit your shower to 5 minutes. Another idea is to turn on the shower, get wet, turn off the shower, soap up, and then turn the shower back on to rinse off. That also helps conserve water. When we added detergent in here, same kind of detergent you use when you do laundry or even dishes, you want to make sure you're using the recommended amount. Washers and dryers these days are high efficiency, so that means you just use a little bit of detergent rather than as much as a big cup like this. You don't want to use a big cup anymore. The next ingredient was toilets. Should people just go around and not flush the toilets? Absolutely not. But in some households, people say if it's yellow, let it mellow. That means if you just do a number 1, flush it or don't flush it. If you do a number 2, your big business, flush that down. Another thing with toilets is there are dual flush toilets these days. Some of them have 2 buttons or 2 handles. One flushes for your little business and one flushes a little more water for your big business. The next item we used was garbage disposal. One thing you can do instead of scraping your leftover foods into the sink and draining it down the garbage disposal, you can use a compost bin. In the city of Kent, we have compost and yard waste pickup, so you can scrape your food into a compost bin and compost that food. Household cleaners, instead of that pretty blue, shiny stuff that we use, there are natural cleaners we can use, such as vinegar. Vinegar is a very good natural and safe cleaner. It helps keep your windows streak-free and also is safe to use around the house. The next item we added was oil and antifreeze. So, as I mentioned before, you see a drop of oil, it spreads out into a sheen of rainbow colors. So if you happen to see cars that are leaking, you might let your parents know if it's their car or an aunt or uncle or friend's car. You can let them know if that is a problem. You could tell them. Another thing you can do is try to carpool. So not everyone is driving their own car. You can take the bus. You can find other modes of transportation like riding your bike, walking. Let's see, what else? Scooters. I know kids like scooters these days. Another item we had was paints and solvents. So with paints, should you ever pour paint down the drain? Absolutely not. That's very hard for it to get clean at the sewer plant. So what you want to do with paints, if you have a little bit left in your jar of paint, is keep the lid open overnight so it gets completely hardened. And then once it's all the way hard, you can throw that in your regular garbage and it can get disposed of properly. Otherwise, you have to take it to a hazardous waste specific disposal site. The next thing we had into our pollution soup was fertilizer. So again, fertilizers help your plants and vegetables grow very big and strong. Sometimes in large amounts, they can be detrimental. They can do harm to your fruits and vegetables or your plants. So you can also use natural fertilizers rather than store-bought ones like the green ones that I added in here. The more natural ones can be something like a banana peel, which helps roses grow, or you can use other items that are natural to help your foods and vegetables grow. The last item we added were pesticides. And again, there are many natural options to use for pesticides to keep your vegetables safe from pests. You can use vinegar. Once again, if you mix vinegar and a little bit of water, that helps keep your plants safe and it keeps pests away. Aphids are a very big pest for a lot of backyard gardens. You guys heard of aphids? They're little tiny green bugs. Well, one way to get rid of aphids is to bring in some ladybugs. Ladybugs love to eat aphids. So I've seen ladybugs at McLennan's Hardware and Home Depot. You can actually buy ladybugs and bring them to your house. Or if you find them in your yard, you can move them to your fruits and vegetables. All right, well now I think I'm gonna go off camera and drink my pollution soup. So cheers. Thanks everyone. I hope you have a good day and I hope you learned something.
Hello, I'm Stefan Sewell, and I'm here with the Planet Protector Summit. I'm going to show you some amazing things. I have a piece of rope here. I'm going to untie it so you can see the ends. Now, when I drop this end, it's going to go way down there. Look, it went way down here. There's the ends, 2 ends. Now, most people don't know this, but the ends of a rope are removable. When you remove them, you end up with an endless rope. Just like magic. Did you know that there are 2 things that are really important that we're going to talk about today, and those 2 things are you and the environment. You and the environment. We are planet protectors. To protect our planet, we work together. And we use our imagination. Yes, we do. We use our mind, our imagination. We use concentration. Look, we can do things with our imagination, with our concentration. Like me, I just used imaginary scissors to cut this rope. Well, that means there's 4 ends, 2 middles. 2 middles? I see 2 middles, but there's really only 1 piece of rope. Now, watch the ends, because the ends explain everything. We have you, and we have the invisible connection between you, that's all of us, every one of us, each and every one of you, look, an invisible connection between you and the environment. I'm going to show you that connection with the ring. I have a ring here. With this ring, you can see how we connect with the environment by magic. Look at that. If this is the environment and it's coming to connect with us, look at how it magically connects right there. We can do amazing things with our environment. Look, here's the ends. If I keep them separate from the center, there's no way that this rope can come off unless I put an end through the middle. But look, magic happens. It's off. Is it on or off? Can you tell? It's on. This is the ring and the rope, and I want you to look now at these 2 sticks, which also show the invisible link between you and the environment. Look, this one has a long string running right through the end of the stick, completely separate from the short one over here. Now imagine this is you, and you're trying to understand your environment. Well, the golden rule says that if you put your attention on the other, the environment in this case, look, you understand what it's like to be in the place of the other. You and others are connected. You and the environment are connected, just like magic. It's an invisible link. An invisible link exists between you and others, between you and the environment. And sometimes we don't quite know. Where did it go? Then you have to borrow it. Tie it back. Give it a pull. And there you have it. Ladies and gentlemen, the invisible link. I'm going to set the invisible link down here and show you the 2 ways of saying the golden rule. There's 2 ways of saying the golden rule: do and don't do. The golden rule of the planet is do unto others as you would have others do unto you. The other way of saying it is don't do to anybody what you wouldn't want them to do to you. Don't do to the environment what you wouldn't want the environment to do to you. So, these 2 ways of saying this aren't the only 2 ways. We've discovered by researching the formulations of the golden rule that there's actually more than 2 ways of saying it. There's actually 1,000 ways, and they're all printed here on my golden rule flag. 1,000 sentences, 1,000 different ways of saying it. This shows how universal the golden rule is. And because we have quite a bit of time today, all the 3rd and 4th graders today are learning all about the environment. I thought I would read all 1,000 of them. No, I won't do that. But I will read the first one. The first one is from Africa. If you're going to take a stick and poke a little bird in the bush, you ought to try it on yourself first to see how it hurts. Think about it. That's a way of formulating, of expressing the golden rule. There's endless ways of doing that, and it is helping protect our planet because all of us are already doing this. Let me show you another thing here. Because we're applying the golden rule to the environment, I'm going to take this blue water, which represents the water that we swim in, and I'm going to pour that water into the water right here at the top of the aquifer, above the aquifer. This is the aquifer. Look. We can't see the aquifer. It's underground. That's why I have the tube. The water that we can see, the water that we can swim in and drink, we see that, and it's above the aquifer. All of us right now are above an aquifer. There's underground water that goes underground that we rely on. It's way down beneath us, and we need it to live. Look, this represents the groundwater, the water that flows into the ground right before and above the aquifer. We can't see it, but it's there. It's there. It's underneath, it's in the ground, in the rocks, the leaves, the grass, the dirt, the earth. Below that is the aquifer. Drinkable water that we need. That water is right down there in the aquifer. So everything we do above the ground in the water that we can see, it affects the quality of the water underneath the ground. Everything we do above the ground affects the quality of the water underneath the ground in the aquifer. That's why we have to be careful not to get our water looking like this. This has chemicals, pesticides, fertilizers, solvents, paint thinner, oil from the cars on the road. A little bit of oil dropped on the road can mix with the water. Well, look, we're going to concentrate all of this polluted water into this tiny little cup. And now, this polluted water will show us one of the most amazing principles because it takes only a small bit of polluted water, goes into a pond. Then that pond connects with a stream and the entire stream now has pollution in it. That connects with a river. And then that river flows into a lake. And it could even reach Puget Sound. So, we have quite a bit of polluted water now. The river's polluted. The stream and the lake. The lake to the pond. And all we started with was just a little bit of water, just a little bit in a cup this size. So think about that. Take that into your classroom and really think about it. We can do a lot with that. I think a lot of you want to be magicians. I know I've always wanted to be a magician. In fact, I'll show you a magic trick that you can do when you get home. It's with paper napkins. That's why you want to wait till you're at home to practice this. You take a napkin and you show everybody the napkin and you tear it into pieces. And as you tear it up, you tell everyone about the magic of the planet, of recycling, of reducing waste, conserving and preserving things like this paper. Paper comes from trees, and you can tell your friends about the magic of recycling while you're squeezing these pieces into a ball. Now you need a magic wand, and you take it and tap it over the torn pieces. You can use a stick or a pencil or anything really, a coin. You just need something to tap. And then, look what happens. It recycles into one reusable, restored napkin. Now, if you think about it, paper comes from trees. Trees make paper. So if you recycle 17 trees, you're going to save about a ton of paper. If you have 1 ton of paper comes from 17 trees, so every time you recycle paper, you're saving trees. So here's how you do this. Take a napkin, roll it into a ball, hide it in your hand. Don't open your hand because they'll see it. Take another napkin. You have to have many to practice with. Hide the napkin in your hand. Nobody sees it. Then you tear it up and you tell everyone about the magic of recycling, how you are a recycler, a planet protector, and how every time you recycle paper, you're saving trees. Now you're going to switch the torn pieces for the extra one in your hand. Watch the switch. You have to make it tight. So when I reach for the wand here, everyone's looking here at the wand. That's when I switch the two. I switch the torn pieces. They're now in my hand and the whole one is there. So I tap it, put the wand back, and I open it up and I say, that's the magic of recycling. Now, what do you do with those torn pieces? It's important. You don't want to give it away. Give away the magic? No, you want to keep it a secret. So don't open your hand like this, because if you do, everyone's going to say, hey, if you're a real magician, you should be able to fix those. And everybody knows that is impossible. It's impossible. But what we're learning today is that anything is possible. Let's talk about the flow of water. Water is beautiful when you watch it flow. Look. People travel all over the world to look at flowing water. It's very beautiful when water flows. If we run out of water, we would have to go in search of more water, because we need water to live. Everybody, everything that breathes needs water. So if we run out of water in one place, we would have to go in search of, you got it, more water. I'm going to set this right over here, and if anybody sees anybody putting water into this bowl, you let me know. You saw it? Let's check. Okay, it's empty now, for sure. I'll put it right here. The flow of water is beautiful. How much of the water on this planet is drinkable? If this is all of the water on planet Earth, how much of this water is actually drinkable? The answer is surprising. If this is all of the water on planet Earth, then the amount of that water that's actually drinkable is about that much. That much only, compared with all of the water. Did you see somebody put some water in there? I didn't. But look. More water. I'll set it over here. Keep your eye on it. Now, imagine this is a lake. We need to think as planet protectors, what can we do to keep the water safe? Well, if you use baking soda, you can keep the water safe. In fact, baking soda actually improves the pH in some water bodies, some lakes, but it never harms the water. And you can put an awful lot of baking soda into water to clean with. It's a great cleaner. It gets stains out of the carpet. It cleans the car, cleans grease off of the windows too. And it deodorizes and cleans just about everything in the kitchen. And when it blends in with the water, it doesn't harm it. It just blends right in to the water, as if by magic. I can tell some of you are thinking that the baking soda didn't disappear, that I just poured it on the ground. No, look, it's still in the water. Look, it's right here. Baking soda is magic. You are magic when you help protect our planet, when you're a planet protector. We've talked a little bit about the different types of water. There's water that's fog or steam. There's water that's solid or ice. And then there's water that's liquid. This is liquid right now, and it's got a little color to it. It looks a little bit blue. There's another quality of water that I want to tell you about. It's called hydrostatic. Well, that's what I call it, because you can add a little bit more water to the cup. You see? I can put a little bit more water in that cup than there is room. The water actually is forming a bubble above the cup. So I can level it out here with this piece of paper. Just level it, so now it's flat on the top. And I can put my hand on top of this water, and now, because of the paper, I can actually invert the glass without it leaking. Let's see if I can pull the paper right out. Look at that. Now, how is this possible? The only way is if I can make a block of ice. And if I can freeze water instantly like that, maybe I could also have a hairdryer up my sleeve and melt the water back into liquid. Water is solid, it's liquid, and it's also steam. Did anybody see the steam? Is that steam? Or is it smoke? Hey, you know what? If this were smoke, that would have to mean, that might mean that there's fire. Ooh. Be careful. Hey, that's another thing that water is used for. It's used to actually put out a fire. And that's a good thing we use water for. Let's take a look now at the billions of possibilities that there are with our planet and the ways that we can help protect. Look, everything in the environment is mixing up constantly. There's billions of possibilities. So what we have to do is find solutions. Solutions. And sometimes they come like magic. Sometimes magicians are earth scientists. So let's take a look at what it's like to try to come up with a solution to a problem, to a world problem. Water, they say, now is gold. We have to be very careful to preserve our water. This is potable water. It's drinkable water. When water flows, as we've seen during this magic presentation, it can carry contaminants with it that are invisible. Look. You don't see it. But something happens. Something is introduced and it's now polluted. A little bit of pollution can pollute a large body of water. And if this happens to us, we have to find a solution. So, I want everyone in your classroom right now to concentrate. Concentrate on this water. Imagine that we're coming up with a solution, some way to clean this water. We'll take the whole jug. And I'll put the cap on it so I can really hold it out here. Concentrate on this water. Imagine that you're in charge of coming up with the way to preserve this water, to make it clear, clean, and drinkable again. That's clear, very clear. And let's see if we can use that solution to clean this cup. It's magic. Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, here I have a black piece of paper and a white piece of paper. Now I've already used them. I'm going to turn them into a magic effect right now. You know, environmental science is magical. I got to get all the pieces. Did you see that piece? Let me grab that piece. Every piece matters. I'm going to squeeze them together, and I'm going to do a little bit of environmental magic right now as I turn the black paper into the image of magic, the magician's top hat. That's the black paper, and the white paper is what the magician pulls out of the hat. The white paper in the hat. Okay, there's a little more black than I thought. There's more white, more black, more white. This is amazing. And it's a lot like the magic of our environment. And environmental scientists are just like magicians. They're always trying to pull a rabbit out of the hat. And we want you to be an environmental scientist too, and a magician too, with the planet, to protect the planet as much as possible. Everything on this planet is connected. Just like this, what's it? It's got 4 pom-poms. It's a stick with 2 ends. A long string on one end and a short string on the other. Now, let's imagine that the blue one is the water, the yellow one is the sunshine. Red is the earth here, and this is the air way down here. The sun is connected to the air, which is connected through the air to the earth, which is here. The earth is also connected to the sun, which is connected to the air, and the air is connected to the water. The water is then connected to the sun. Everything's interconnected. I pull on the white pom-pom, the yellow pom-pom goes up. I pull on the red pom-pom, the yellow pom-pom goes up, the white pom-pom goes down. I pull on the blue pom-pom, the white pom-pom goes up, the yellow pom-pom goes down. That can only mean one thing. The white pom-pom is connected to the blue pom-poms connect the yellow pom-poms connect the red pom-poms connect the white pom-pom. Just like I said, everything's interconnected, but we don't see it. We don't see all of the connections. Look. There are invisible connections in the environment, which makes us planet protectors, because we take those and work with them. Let me give you an example. This is the water cycle, and the water cycle goes like this. Water rains down out of the sky, fills up lakes, the rivers, and the oceans. And when that water rains down out of the sky. That's the beginning of the water cycle. The water cycle mixes back and forth into the lakes, the rivers, and the oceans. And that water evaporates up into the sky, turns into clouds. And those clouds blow through the air, and then they rain down on everybody's head. It doesn't disappear like I just did. It goes somewhere. Everything goes somewhere, and the water cycle goes forever in a circle. It's a cycle. And we have to balance the cycle, balance the planet. Protecting it is balancing it. So to show you about balancing, I'm going to take these chairs here and this ladder over here, and I'm going to balance them right out here. Put the ladder on top. It'll come right in here like this and just balance across the two chairs. Balance is a very important part of how we care for the planet. So let me invite someone who's not really ready for this, just someone from the audience. Let me see who I can get. Come right this way. Would you help me out? Check this out. 2 chairs, a ladder. Have a seat right here on the ladder. I'll hold the chair so nothing happens, like last time. Oh, well, anyway, put your feet this way. And right where you are, lay down. That's good. Lean back. Keep your head right there. I'm going to cover you. Cover you this way. Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, the balance that we need to find with our environment is an amazing balance. It's not simple, and it's not as easy as you might think. It's amazing, though. Look. Don't move. As long as I keep one hand on the ladder, everything's fine. And I move the chair over there. So, wait a second. I can't believe the balance we're finding here at the Planet Protector Summit is amazing. It's better than I thought. Look, she's balanced on the edge of her chair in midair. Look at that. This is the kind of balance we need to find, the kind of balance that no one would expect to be possible, that's just amazing. If I put this ladder back, lift your feet. Okay. I can uncover you. You can sit up. Turn to the audience and dive off. To your thunderous applause. Wow. Well, now I'm going to show you my last magical effect. Concentrate on this. It will summarize everything we've been talking about today. And it's easy to remember. You only have to remember 6 key ideas related to these rings. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The first ring represents you, all of us, everyone here today at the Planet Protector Summit. The second ring represents our environment, what we are caring for, the planet, what we're protecting. You and the environment are connected. One connected with the other. If I give them a twist, they come apart like rings of smoke, not steel. Look, as one goes right through and connects with the other. If I reach through the center here, they come apart. You and the environment are linked and much stronger together than apart. You and the environment. We're going to add our commitment. Here in Kent, we are committed. Committed to our environment, to being planet protectors. Committed to the fourth ring, preservation. We want to preserve the environment. As soon as you find new ways to preserve things, to keep things clean, you make new patterns as you preserve the environment, and those patterns go through all of those other rings. As you preserve, you actually help the entire world. When you preserve the planet, preserve the environment. The fifth ring, conservation. We not only have to preserve, we have to conserve. Conserving water means using the right amount of water, for example. That's the fifth ring. And the sixth ring represents learning and understanding, which is why we come here today and why we've come here for 25 years, every year, to this summit, to learn and increase our understanding. When we do that, we create a team, a chain, all connected and all on one. Remember the first ring, the ring of you? You are the most important link in this chain. And that's why I'm here, to remind you how important you are. And thank you for helping me. I'm Stefan Sewell. You make the magic at the Planet Protectors Summit.